Liam Carter's hand shook as he gripped the mop handle outside the executive floor, a place he had no business being. Inside that office, his daughter's medication bills sat unpaid on his kitchen counter. 3 jobs weren't enough anymore. One more missed payment and Ava's treatments would stop. He'd already sold everything that mattered. The door in front of him was mahogany, polished to a mirror shine, marked with a name he'd only heard whispered, Aurora Vale, CEO. He shouldn't be here, but the supervisor's text had been clear. Cover the executive wing now. He was about to open the wrong door, and everything would change. This is a story about desperation, second chances, and the single moment that rewrites a life. If you want to see how far one choice can reach, stay with me until the end. And when you get there, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the basement break room buzzed like dying insects. Liam Carter sat hunched over a styrofoam cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, his phone face down on the table because he couldn't stand to look at it anymore. The screen was cracked in 3 places, had been for months, but that wasn't why he'd flipped it over. It was the notifications, the red numbers that wouldn't stop climbing. Pharmacy. Payment past due. Pharmacy. Final notice. Riverside Pediatric. Outstanding balance. $3,847. He pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. His shift at Hartwell Industries didn't start for another 40 minutes, but he'd arrived early because the warehouse job had let out at 4 a.m., and there was no point going home for 90 minutes of sleep that wouldn't come anyway. Better to sit here in the chemical smell of industrial cleaner and pretend he was resting. The door banged open. Marcus, the swing shift supervisor, stuck his head in. His face was flushed, eyes darting. Carter, you're on executive. Liam's head snapped up. What? Jenkins called out. Stomach thing. You're covering the 15th floor. I don't... Marcus, I've never worked executive. I don't even have the... You've got a key card, don't you? Yeah, but it's only cleared for... Then you're cleared enough. 15th floor. Now. They want it done before the early meetings start. Marcus was already pulling back, moving on to the next crisis. Trash, vacuum, wipe down the conference rooms. Don't touch anything on the desks. Don't talk to anyone. You've got 90 minutes. The door swung shut. Liam sat frozen. The 15th floor. Executive row. In 3 years of working at Hartwell Industries, he'd never been above the 8th floor. That's where people like him stayed. Maintenance, logistics, warehousing. The invisible machinery that kept the building running while men in suits made decisions that shifted millions of dollars with a signature. He stood up, legs stiff, and grabbed his cleaning cart from the supply closet. The wheels squeaked as he rolled it toward the service elevator. His reflection caught in the dull metal doors. A man who looked older than 32, with shadows under his eyes, and a jaw that hadn't seen a razor in 3 days because he kept forgetting to buy new blades. His uniform shirt had a stain near the collar that wouldn't come out no matter how many times he washed it. The elevator climbed. Liam watched the numbers tick upward, each one a floor further from where he belonged. When the doors opened on 15, the difference was immediate. The air smelled different up here. Less like cleaning solution and recycled ventilation, more like leather and something faintly floral. The hallway was wider, the carpet thick enough to muffle sound. Recessed lighting cast everything in a warm glow that didn't exist in the basement. Floor-to-ceiling windows ran along one side, revealing the city stretched out in the pre-dawn darkness, a grid of lights that looked almost peaceful from up here. Liam pushed the cart forward. The squeak of the wheels seemed obscenely loud. He started with the conference rooms, 2 of them, both the size of his entire apartment. Long tables made of dark wood, chairs that probably cost more than his monthly rent, whiteboards covered in diagrams and projections he didn't understand. He emptied the trash bins, wiped down the tables, ran the vacuum over carpet that didn't look like it had ever been dirty. The work was mechanical, familiar. It kept his hands busy and his mind blissfully blank, until he reached the end of the hallway. The office at the far end was different, larger. The door was mahogany, polished to a reflective shine, with a small placard mounted at eye level. Aurora Vale, Chief Executive Officer. Liam had heard the name. Everyone had. She'd taken over Hartwell Industries 4 years ago when her father died, and in that time she'd doubled the company's value, opened 3 new international divisions, and made the cover of Forbes twice. People spoke about her the way they spoke about forces of nature, with a mix of awe and fear. He'd never seen her. Not in person. She existed in a different stratosphere. The door was closed. Liam checked his phone. 6:47 a.m. The early meetings didn't start until 8. He had time. He knocked anyway. A soft, professional double tap. And waited. Nothing. He tried the handle. It turned. The office was dark except for the city lights filtering through the windows. Liam fumbled for the light switch, found it, and the room flooded with soft, recessed lighting that made everything look like a photograph in a magazine. It was huge. A desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of wood sat in the center, flanked by built-in bookshelves lined with titles he'd never heard of. A sitting area with low leather chairs occupied one corner. The windows behind the desk offered a view that made the hallway's windows look like portholes. The entire downtown skyline, the river cutting through it like a silver thread. The hills beyond just starting to catch the first hint of dawn. Liam pushed the cart inside and got to work. He was halfway through vacuuming when he saw the picture frame on the desk. It was small, almost hidden behind a stack of folders. He shouldn't have looked. He knew better. But his eyes caught it anyway. A photograph of a young girl, maybe 6 or 7, with dark hair and a smile that took up half her face. She was holding a trophy, the kind they give out at school science fairs. Something in Liam's chest twisted. Ava had won a trophy like that once. 2nd grade. A project on the water cycle. She'd been so proud she'd slept with it next to her bed for a week. He turned away, jaw tight, and finished vacuuming. The trash can next to the desk was nearly empty. Just a few crumpled papers and a coffee cup with a lipstick mark on the rim. He pulled out the liner, tied it off, and replaced it with a fresh one. That's when he heard the voice. "You're not Jenkins." Liam spun around so fast he nearly knocked over the trash bin. A woman stood in the doorway. She was tall, taller than he'd expected, wearing a charcoal suit that fit like it had been made specifically for her body. Dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. Her face was striking in a way that didn't need makeup but wore it anyway, subtle and precise. She held a leather bag in one hand and a to-go coffee cup in the other. Liam's brain stuttered. I'm sorry. I didn't... Jenkins called out sick. They told me to cover. I didn't think anyone would... It's fine." Her voice was calm. Not warm, but not cold either. Neutral, assessing. "I can come back later. I didn't mean to... You're already here. Finish." She walked past him, set her bag on the desk, and took a sip of her coffee. Then she looked at him, really looked, like she was running calculations behind her eyes. "What's your name?" "Liam. Liam Carter." "How long have you worked here, Liam Carter?" 3 years. Almost 3 years. "Night shift?" "Night, morning, whatever they need." Her eyebrow lifted slightly. "You work multiple shifts?" He shouldn't have said that. "Sometimes, if there's coverage needed. And you took this shift even though it's not your usual assignment." It wasn't a question. Liam nodded anyway. Aurora Vale set down her coffee and crossed her arms. She was studying him the way someone might study a piece of abstract art, trying to figure out what it was supposed to mean. "Most people would have said no," she said, "told Marcus to find someone else. I needed the hours." "Why?" The question was so direct it caught him off guard. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His instinct was to deflect, to give some generic answer about bills or rent. But something about the way she was looking at him made lying feel pointless. "My daughter," he said. "She has asthma, the severe kind. The medications she needs aren't cheap, and insurance only covers part of it." Aurora's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "How old is she?" 9, and you're raising her alone." It wasn't a question this time either. "Yeah." She picked up her coffee again, took another sip, and walked to the window. For a moment, she just stood there, looking out at the city as it started to wake up. Liam had no idea what to do. Leave? Stay? Apologize again? "I've seen you before," Aurora said without turning around. Liam blinked. "Ma'am? 3 weeks ago. I was leaving late, around midnight, and I saw you in the 8th floor break room. You were asleep at one of the tables." His stomach dropped. "I'm sorry, I wasn't..." You had a textbook open in front of you, something about business management. He froze. She turned to face him. You're trying to move up. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement. Liam's throat felt tight. I can't stay in maintenance forever. Ava's going to need more than I can give her on this salary. College. A future. I'm trying to get certified so I can apply for a supervisor role, maybe move into operations. But it's slow. The courses cost money I don't have, and I don't sleep much, so I forget things, and he stopped himself. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear all that. Aurora walked back to her desk, set down her coffee, and pulled out her chair. She sat down, leaned back, and steepled her fingers. How many jobs do you work, Liam? 3? Where are the other 2? Warehouse gig, midnight to 4 a.m., 5 days a week. Weekends I stock shelves at a grocery store. That's 4 jobs. The grocery thing is part-time, doesn't really count. And when do you sleep? When I can. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened one of her desk drawers, pulled out a leather-bound planner, and flipped through it. I'm going to ask you a question, she said, and I want you to answer honestly. Can you do that? Liam nodded. If I offered you a full-time position here, something that paid enough that you wouldn't need 3 other jobs, would you take it? His heart slammed against his ribs. Yes. Even if you weren't qualified for it? I'd figure it out. That's not an answer. Yes, he said again, louder this time. I'd take it. I'd work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I don't care what it is. I'll learn it. Aurora closed the planner. I'm not talking about another maintenance role. Liam's mouth went dry. I've been watching you, she continued. Not just 3 weeks ago, for 2 months. You show up early, you stay late. You take shifts no one else wants, you don't complain, you don't cut corners, and when you think no one's looking, you're studying because you want more than this. I don't understand, Liam said. I'm offering you a position on my operations team. Management track. Full benefits, including health insurance that will actually cover your daughter's medications. Salary that will let you quit your other jobs. The room tilted. You don't even know me, Liam said. I know enough. I don't have a degree. I don't have experience. You have something more valuable than either of those things, Aurora said. You have a reason to succeed. People with reasons don't quit when things get hard. They find a way. Liam's hands were shaking. He shoved them into his pockets. This doesn't make sense, he said. People don't just... This doesn't happen. It's happening. Why? Aurora stood up, walked around the desk, and leaned against the front of it, arms crossed. When I was 12, she said, my father almost lost this company. Bad investments, worse advisors, a board that wanted him gone. We went from country clubs to selling furniture to keep the lights on. I watched him rebuild everything from nothing. And I watched the people who helped him do it, the ones who stayed when everyone else ran. They weren't the smartest people in the room. They weren't the most qualified, but they were the ones who gave a damn. She looked at Liam. You give a damn, she said. I can't teach that. Liam felt like his lungs had forgotten how to work. I need an answer, Aurora said, because if you say yes, this starts Monday. You'll report to my VP of Operations, Daniel Ruiz. He'll expect you to learn fast, work hard, and keep up. It won't be easy. You'll be in rooms with people who have decades of experience and degrees from schools you've never heard of. They'll doubt you. Some of them will resent you, but if you prove yourself, you'll move up. And if I can't keep up, then you'll wash out, but I don't think you will. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Yes, Liam said. His voice cracked. Yes, I'll do it. Aurora nodded once, as if that settled it, and walked back to her desk. She pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back, and handed it to him. Be here Monday, 8 a.m. Ask for Daniel. Give him this. Liam took the card with numb fingers. On the front was her name and title. On the back, in clean, precise handwriting, she'd written, Give him a chance. A.V. Thank you, Liam said. His throat felt raw. I don't know how to... Don't thank me yet, Aurora said. Thank me when you've earned it. She sat down, opened her laptop, and her focus shifted immediately, like he'd already stopped existing. Liam grabbed his cleaning cart and backed out of the office, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. He made it to the elevator before his knees buckled. By the time Liam got home, the sun was fully up. His apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. The heating didn't work half the time, the hot water was a gamble, and the neighbors upstairs had a dog that barked at ghosts. But it was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask questions when rent was late. He pushed open the door and found Ava asleep on the couch, still in her pajamas, her inhaler on the coffee table next to a half-eaten bowl of cereal. Mrs. Cho, the retired nurse from down the hall who watched Ava when Liam worked nights, looked up from her knitting. "She had a rough night," Mrs. Cho said quietly. "Used the inhaler twice. She's okay now, though." Liam nodded, chest tight. "Thank you. You look terrible." "I'm fine." Mrs. Cho gave him a look that said she didn't believe him, but she didn't push. She gathered her knitting, patted his arm as she passed, and slipped out the door. Liam locked it behind her and stood there for a moment, staring at Ava. She looked so small, curled up on the couch, her dark hair tangled, one hand tucked under her cheek. She had his nose and her mother's eyes. Not that Liam thought about that much anymore. Claire had left when Ava was 2, and the last he'd heard, she was in California with a new husband and a clean slate. No forwarding address, no phone number. He crouched down next to the couch and brushed a strand of hair off Ava's forehead. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Dad?" "Hey, kiddo, you're home early." "Got off a little sooner than usual." She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Can we have pancakes?" Liam smiled. "Yeah, we can have pancakes." He made them from scratch, the cheap box mix that only needed water, and they ate together at the tiny kitchen table that wobbled no matter how many folded napkins he shoved under the legs. "Dad?" Ava said through a mouthful of syrup. "Yeah? Are we going to be okay?" The question hit him like a fist. "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "I heard you on the phone last night with the pharmacy lady." Liam set down his fork. "You don't need to worry about that stuff." "But I do worry." He reached across the table and took her small hand in his. "We're going to be okay. I promise. You always say that, because it's always true." She looked at him with those 2 old eyes, the ones kids get when they've had to grow up faster than they should. "Okay," she said, but Liam could see she didn't quite believe him. That night, after Ava had gone to bed, Liam sat at the kitchen table with Aurora's business card in front of him. He'd read it so many times the edges were starting to fray. Give him a chance. It didn't feel real. None of it felt real. He pulled out his phone, cracked screen and all, and opened the browser. Typed in Hartwell Industries Operations Management. The job listings that came up made his stomach churn. Minimum qualifications: bachelor's degree in business administration or related field, 5+ years of management experience. Proficiency in... He didn't have any of it. He was a guy who'd barely graduated high school, who'd spent the last decade working jobs that didn't require a resume because he didn't have one worth reading. What the hell was Aurora Vale thinking? His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Heard you covered executive this morning. You piss anyone off?" Liam typed back. "No? Why?" "Because I just got a call from HR saying you're being transferred. Effective Monday." Liam stared at the screen. "Transferred where?" "Didn't say. Just told me to take you off the schedule." Liam set the phone down. It was real. It was actually real. He looked at Ava's bedroom door, then back at the card. He'd spent 3 years running on fumes, duct tape, and hope that was 90% delusion. He'd learned to expect nothing, plan for disaster, and keep moving because stopping meant drowning. But this was a door opening, and he had no idea what was on the other side. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt something unfamiliar flicker to life in his chest. It felt a little bit like hope. Monday morning arrived like a sentencing. Liam stood outside the Hartwell Industries building at 7:45 a.m., wearing the only button-down shirt he owned that didn't have a visible stain. He'd ironed it twice, once Saturday night, once Sunday morning, but there was still a crease near the shoulder that wouldn't flatten. His khakis were clean but worn thin at the knees, and his shoes were the same black knockoffs he'd bought 3 years ago for a funeral. They pinched his feet, but they looked professional enough if you didn't look too close. He felt like a kid playing dress-up in his father's clothes. The lobby was already buzzing with activity. Men and women in sharp suits moved with the kind of purposeful speed that came from knowing exactly where they belonged. Liam watched them swipe keycards at the turnstiles, nod at security guards who knew their names, disappear into elevators without a second thought. He didn't belong here. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Cho. Ava's at school. Packed her lunch. Good luck today. Liam typed back a quick thanks and shoved the phone in his pocket. The security guard at the front desk looked up as Liam approached. His name tag read Stevens. Help you? I'm supposed to see Daniel Ruiz. Operations. Stevens squinted at his computer screen. Name? Liam Carter. A pause. More squinting. Then Stevens picked up a phone, muttered something Liam couldn't hear, and hung up. 11th floor, someone will meet you. Liam nodded and headed for the elevators. The ride up felt longer than it should have. He watched the numbers climb, 3rd floor, 5th, 8th, and tried to remember how to breathe normally. His palms were sweating. He wiped them on his pants. When the doors opened on 11, a woman was waiting. She was maybe 40, with graying hair pulled into a tight bun and glasses that sat low on her nose. She wore a navy blazer and held a tablet like it was an extension of her arm. Liam Carter? Yes. I'm Patricia Eng, Mr. Ruiz's assistant. Follow me. She turned and walked without checking to see if he was following. Liam hurried to keep up. The 11th floor looked like something out of a magazine. Glass-walled conference rooms lined one side of the hallway, and on the other were open-plan workstations where people sat in front of multiple monitors, typing with the kind of speed that suggested they'd been born with keyboards in their hands. Everything was white and chrome and ruthlessly efficient. Patricia stopped in front of a corner office. The door was open. Mr. Ruiz, Liam Carter is here. A voice from inside. Send him in. Patricia stepped aside. Liam walked through the door. Daniel Ruiz sat behind a desk that was somehow both minimalist and imposing. He was younger than Liam expected. Mid-40s, maybe, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and the kind of tan that came from actual sun, not a bottle. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie, and he was reading something on his laptop with the focused intensity of a man solving a difficult equation. He didn't look up. Sit, he said. Liam sat. For a long moment, Ruiz kept reading. Then he closed the laptop and looked at Liam for the first time. His eyes were sharp, assessing. Do you know why you're here? Ruiz asked. Ms. Vale offered me a position. I know that. I'm asking if you know why. Liam hesitated. She said she saw something in me. Did she? It wasn't a question. Ruiz leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Let me be clear about something, he said. I didn't ask for you. I didn't hire you. Aurora dropped you in my lap Friday afternoon with a 2-line email that said, and I quote, give him a shot. That's it. No explanation, no qualifications, just you. Liam's stomach tightened. So here's what's going to happen, Ruiz continued. You're going to work for me for the next 90 days. If you can keep up, you stay. If you can't, you're gone. No second chances, no appeals. Clear? Clear. What's your background? I worked maintenance here for 3 years. Before that, I did warehouse jobs, delivery driving, whatever I could find. Education. High school diploma. Ruiz's eyebrow twitched. That's it? I've been taking online courses, business management, operations fundamentals. I'm not certified yet, but I'm working on it. Online courses, Ruiz repeated like the words tasted bad. You know what the people on this floor have? Master's degrees from schools that cost more per semester than you probably make in a year. They've worked at Fortune 500 companies. They've managed teams, run divisions, built entire operational frameworks from scratch. Liam said nothing. You're going to be in meetings with them, Ruiz said. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to expect you to know things you don't know. And when you can't answer, they're going to wonder why the hell you're even in the room. I'll figure it out, Liam said. That's not good enough. Then I'll work harder than they do. Ruiz stared at him for a long moment. Then he stood up. Come with me. They walked through the open-plan workspace, past rows of desks where people glanced up briefly before returning to their screens. Ruiz moved fast, and Liam had to lengthen his stride to keep up. They stopped at a desk in the far corner, empty except for a computer, a phone, and a stack of binders that looked like they hadn't been touched in months. This is you, Ruiz said. Your login credentials are taped to the monitor. Change the password immediately. Patricia will send you a calendar invite for the morning briefing, 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. What do I read? The binders, all of them. They cover our operational protocols, supply chain workflows, vendor management systems, and performance metrics. If someone asks you a question about any of it, you should know the answer. Liam looked at the stack. There had to be 6 binders, each one at least 3 inches thick. How long do I have? Morning briefing is in 90 minutes. Liam's head snapped up. You're serious? Do I look like I'm joking? He didn't. Ruiz walked away without another word. Liam sat down, pulled the first binder toward him, and opened it. The first page was a table of contents that ran 4 pages long. He started reading. By the time Patricia appeared at his desk to remind him about the briefing, Liam had made it through 1.5 binders, and his brain felt like it had been put through a blender. Terms he didn't recognize swam in front of his eyes. Just-in-time inventory management, SKU optimization, third-party logistics integration, and every time he thought he understood something, the next page introduced a new concept that built on the thing he'd barely grasped. Mr. Ruiz expects you in conference room B, Patricia said. Liam grabbed a notebook. He'd found it in the desk drawer, and followed her. Conference room B had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and a table that could seat 20 people. There were already a dozen people there, most of them standing in small clusters, talking in low voices. They all had the same polished look. Expensive suits, leather portfolios, watches that probably cost more than Liam's rent. Ruiz was at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone. Liam slid into a seat near the back and tried to make himself invisible. A woman across the table glanced at him. She was maybe 30, blonde, with the kind of sharp cheekbones that belonged on a billboard. Her name tag read Jessica Mills, Senior Analyst. "You're new," she said. "Yeah." "What department?" "Operations." Her eyes flicked to Ruiz, then back to Liam. Huh. Before Liam could figure out what that meant, Ruiz cleared his throat. "Let's get started." Everyone sat down. Liam opened his notebook. "Quick updates," Ruiz said. "West Coast distribution is still running 3 days behind schedule. The vendor we contracted for the new fulfillment software missed their deployment deadline. Again. And we've got a client presentation on Friday that needs numbers I don't have yet." He looked around the table. "Mills, where are we on the vendor situation?" Jessica sat up straighter. "I've been in contact with their project lead. They're citing integration issues with our legacy system. I've pushed them for a revised timeline, but they're being cagey." "Not acceptable. Get me a hard date by end of day or we start looking at alternates." "Understood." "Carter." Liam's head snapped up. Every eye in the room turned toward him. Ruiz was looking at him with that same unreadable expression. "What's our current SKU count in the East Coast warehouses?" Liam's mind went blank. He'd seen that number. He knew he'd seen it. It was in one of the binders, page 70-something, maybe? Or was it in the appendix? "I don't know," he said. The silence was deafening. "You don't know," Ruiz repeated. "Not off the top of my head. I can find it." "That's not the point," Jessica Mills smirked. Someone else coughed to cover a laugh. Ruiz moved on. "Henderson, talk to me about the freight cost overruns." The meeting continued. Liam took notes, but his hand was shaking so badly the words looked like a seismograph readout. He caught fragments, budget variances, supplier negotiations, capacity constraints, but it all blurred together into white noise. When the meeting finally ended, people filed out in groups, still talking, already moving on to the next thing. Liam stayed in his seat. Ruiz gathered his papers, slid them into a leather folder, and glanced at Liam. "Walk with me." They went back to Ruiz's office. He closed the door. "Sit." Liam sat. Ruiz leaned against the edge of his desk, arms crossed. "That was embarrassing," he said. "I know." "Do you?" "I should have known the answer. You should have known all the answers. You should have walked into that room with every number, every metric, every protocol memorized so that when I asked you a question, you didn't have to think about it." Liam's jaw tightened. "I'm trying." "Trying isn't enough. You think anyone in that room is trying? They already know. They've done this for years. They don't get to coast on effort." "Then what do you want from me?" "I want you to prove Aurora right, or prove her wrong. I don't care which." Liam looked up. "You don't think I should be here?" I think you're in over your head, but that's not the same thing as saying you can't swim. Ruiz straightened up and walked around to his chair. You've got 88 days left. Use them. Liam stood up. His legs felt unsteady. Is that all? No, there's a logistics audit happening Thursday. You're coming with me. What do I need to do? Show up and don't embarrass me more than you already have. Liam left the office, walked back to his desk, and sat down heavily. Around him, people worked. Phones rang. Keyboards clattered. The machine kept running, and Liam felt like a loose bolt rattling around inside it. That night, he stayed at the office until almost midnight. He read through the rest of the binders, took notes until his hand cramped, and pulled up spreadsheets on the computer that made his eyes cross. There were sheets tracking inventory levels across 6 regional warehouses, vendor performance metrics, cost per unit analyses that went back 3 years. He didn't understand half of it, but he kept going. When he finally left, the building was nearly empty. The security guard at the front desk gave him a curious look. You're here late. Yeah. First day? Is it that obvious? The guard smiled. You'll get the hang of it. Liam wasn't so sure. He got home after 1 in the morning. Ava was asleep, and Mrs. Cho had left a note on the kitchen counter. She had a good day. Ate all her dinner. See you tomorrow. Liam collapsed onto the couch and closed his eyes. He was asleep in 30 seconds. The next 3 days were a blur. Liam showed up every morning at 7:30 and didn't leave until the cleaning crew started vacuuming around his desk. He sat in meetings where people used acronyms he had to look up later. He listened to presentations about supply chain optimization and nodded along like he understood, then went back to his desk and spent hours trying to piece together what he'd missed. On Thursday, Ruiz took him to the logistics audit. It was held at a warehouse 40 minutes outside the city, a massive concrete building that smelled like diesel and cardboard. Inside, rows of industrial shelving stretched toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Forklifts beeped and rumbled. Workers in high-vis vests shouted to each other over the noise. Ruiz walked through it like he owned the place. The warehouse manager, a broad-shouldered guy named Ed with a clipboard and a permanent scowl, met them at the office. You're early, Ed said. We're on time, Ruiz corrected. Let's see it. They spent the next 2 hours walking the floor, pulling random items off shelves, cross-checking serial numbers against inventory logs. Ruiz asked questions in rapid-fire succession, and Ed answered most of them, but every so often he'd glance at one of his staff, and there'd be a pause that lasted just a beat too long. Liam noticed. He didn't say anything, just watched, listened, took notes. At one point, Ruiz pulled an item off a shelf, some kind of industrial valve, and frowned. This should be in Warehouse 3. Ed checked his clipboard. System says it's here. System's wrong. Or someone moved it and didn't update the log. Ruiz looked at Liam. What do you think? Liam blinked. About what? Why would this be here instead of Warehouse 3? Every eye in the room turned toward him. Liam looked at the valve, then at the shelf, then at the layout of the warehouse, the way the sections were organized, the flow of the forklifts, the proximity to the loading docks. Warehouse 3 handles smaller orders, right? He said slowly. Ruiz nodded. This is a high-volume item. If it's here, it's because someone needed it fast and didn't want to wait for a transfer. They probably pulled it, filled the order, and didn't log it because they were rushing. Ed's scowl deepened. That's against protocol. Yeah, Liam said, but it's faster. Ruiz's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Log it, he told Ed, and fix the system flag so it doesn't happen again. They finished the audit an hour later. On the drive back, Ruiz was quiet. Finally, he said, You did okay today. Liam glanced over. Yeah? You're observant. That's good. But observation without action is just voyeurism. Meaning? Meaning next time you see something wrong, say it. Don't wait for me to ask. Liam nodded. When they got back to the office, there was an envelope on Liam's desk. He opened it and found a check inside. His first paycheck. The number made his breath catch. It was more than he'd made in 2 months at his old jobs combined. He stared at it for a long time. Then he folded it carefully, slid it into his wallet, and got back to work. That weekend, Liam took Ava to the pharmacy. He handed over the check, watched the pharmacist process it, and walked out with 3 months' worth of medication in a bag that felt impossibly light. Ava held his hand on the way to the car. Dad? Yeah, kiddo? Why are you crying? He wiped his eyes quickly. I'm not. You are. He looked down at her, this small, fierce person who'd fought for every breath she'd ever taken, and felt something crack open inside his chest. I'm just happy, he said. Okay. She climbed into the car, buckled her seatbelt, and started humming a song she'd learned at school. Liam sat in the driver's seat and let himself cry for real. By the end of the second week, Liam had stopped feeling like he was drowning. He still didn't know everything, not even close, but he was learning the rhythms. He knew which meetings mattered and which ones were just theater. He knew that Jessica Mills loved being right more than she loved being helpful, that Henderson in logistics would talk your ear off if you let him, and that Patricia Eng ran Ruiz's schedule with the precision of a Swiss watch. And he knew Ruiz was testing him, not obviously, not with direct challenges, but in the way he'd drop a file on Liam's desk without explanation, or CC him on an email chain and wait to see if Liam could figure out the problem buried in the thread. Liam started staying later, coming in earlier. He read case studies on operational efficiency, watched YouTube videos on supply chain management, and annoyed Henderson with so many questions that the man finally said, "Just call me if you need something. Stop lurking by my desk like a ghost." It was working. Slowly. Painfully. But it was working. On a Tuesday morning in his third week, Ruiz called him into his office. "Close the door." Liam did. Ruiz slid a folder across the desk. "We've got a problem." Liam opened the folder. Inside was a cost analysis for one of their third-party vendors, a company that handled packaging materials for their East Coast operations. The numbers were bad. "They're overcharging us," Liam said. "By about 18%, Ruiz confirmed. "Has been for 6 months. Nobody caught it until now." "How is that possible?" "Because the person responsible for vendor oversight got promoted and didn't train their replacement properly. And because we got lazy." Liam scanned the rest of the document. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to fix it." "How?" "Figure it out." Ruiz leaned back in his chair. "This is your project now. You've got 2 weeks to renegotiate the contract, find a replacement vendor, or come up with a third option I haven't thought of. I don't care which, just fix it." Liam's pulse quickened. "What if I can't?" "Then I'll know Aurora was wrong about you." Liam took the folder and went back to his desk. He spent the rest of the day digging into the vendor's contract, cross-referencing it with market rates, pulling cost comparisons from every competitor he could find. By the time he looked up, it was after 9, and the office was empty except for the overnight cleaning crew. One of them, a guy Liam recognized from his old maintenance days, stopped by his desk. "You're Carter, right?" "Yeah." "Heard you moved up. Good for you, man." "Thanks." The guy gestured at the stacks of papers covering Liam's desk. "Don't kill yourself over it, though. Not worth it." Liam smiled tightly. "I'll keep that in mind." But after the cleaner left, Liam kept working. He worked through the night, went home at dawn to shower and check on Ava, and was back at his desk by 7. And when Ruiz walked in at 8:30, Liam was waiting for him. "I found something," Liam said. Ruiz stopped. "Show me." Liam spread out the documents he'd printed, contracts, rate sheets, cost projections. "They're not just overcharging us," he said. "They're double billing for freight. See here? Line item 347. They're charging us for expedited shipping on every order, but our logs show only 30% of shipments were actually expedited. The rest were standard ground." Ruiz leaned over the desk, eyes narrowing. "How much are we talking?" "Over 6 months? About $43,000. Ruiz straightened up. "Can you prove it?" "I cross-checked every invoice against our receiving logs. The discrepancies are consistent." For the first time since Liam had met him, Daniel Ruiz smiled. "Good work, Carter." "What do we do now?" "Now, you call them, set up a meeting, and we get our money back." Liam felt a jolt of panic. "You want me to do it?" "It's your project." "I've never done anything like that." "Then you'll learn." Ruiz walked away, leaving Liam standing at his desk with his heart hammering against his ribs. He sat down, picked up the phone, and made the call. The voice on the other end of the line was smooth, professional, and utterly uninterested. Summit Packaging Solutions? This is Derek Hoffman. How can I help you? Liam glanced at the notes he'd scribbled on a legal pad, bullet points he'd rehearsed in his head a dozen times. His hand was already sweating around the phone. Mr. Hoffman, this is Liam Carter from Hartwell Industries. I'm calling regarding our current contract and some billing discrepancies we've identified. A pause. Then, billing discrepancies? Yes. We've conducted an internal audit and found inconsistencies between what we're being charged for expedited freight and what we actually received. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss it. Another pause, longer this time. Liam could hear keyboard clicks in the background. I'm looking at our records now, Hoffman said. I'm not seeing any issues on our end. Are you sure this isn't a problem with your internal tracking? Liam's jaw tightened. I'm sure. We have 6 months of invoices and receiving logs that don't match. I can send over the documentation if that helps. That won't be necessary. I'll have our billing department review it and get back to you. When? Within the week. I need a meeting scheduled by Friday. The smooth tone turned cooler. Mr. Carter, was it? I'm not sure you understand how vendor relationships work. We have protocols for this kind of thing. You can't just call up and demand a meeting. Liam felt his pulse spike. He thought about Ruiz watching from his office, about Jessica Mills smirking across the table, about every person in this building who expected him to fail. Mr. Hoffman, Liam said, his voice steadier than he felt. We've paid your company over $200,000 in the last 6 months. $43,000 of that appears to be fraudulent billing. Now you can either meet with me this week and we can resolve this professionally, or I can escalate it to our legal department and let them handle it. Your choice. Silence. Then Hoffman cleared his throat. Let me check my calendar. They scheduled the meeting for Thursday at 10 a.m. When Liam hung up, his hands were shaking. Ruiz was standing in the doorway of his office, arms crossed, watching. Not bad, he said. Liam let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He tried to blow me off. Of course he did. You're new. He figured he could wait you out. What if he does it again? Then you remind him that we have other vendors who'd love our business. Ruiz walked back into his office, and Liam sat there staring at the phone like it might explode. He just threatened a vendor with legal action. He just negotiated a meeting with a man who'd been doing this longer than Liam had been out of high school. And somehow, it had worked. The next 2 days were a masterclass in panic and preparation. Liam pulled every piece of documentation he could find: invoices, shipping manifests, internal emails, receiving logs. He built a spreadsheet that tracked every discrepancy, color-coded by severity. He rehearsed his talking points until he could recite them in his sleep. On Wednesday night, he was still at his desk at 11 p.m. when someone tapped on the cubicle wall. He looked up. Jessica Mills stood there holding a coffee cup, her blazer draped over one arm. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a magazine, even at this hour. "You're still here," she said. "Yeah." "Big meeting tomorrow?" "Something like that." She leaned against the cubicle wall. "The vendor thing, I heard." Liam didn't say anything. "Word of advice," Jessica said. "Don't go in there trying to be their friend. They'll eat you alive." "I wasn't planning on it." "Good. Because Hoffman's a snake. He'll try to make you feel like you're wasting his time, like this is all some big misunderstanding. Don't let him." Liam studied her. "Why are you telling me this?" Jessica shrugged. "Because watching you crash and burn isn't as fun as I thought it'd be." She pushed off the wall and started to walk away, then stopped. "Also," she said without turning around, "Ruiz doesn't give people projects like this unless he thinks they can handle it. So maybe don't prove him wrong." She disappeared around the corner. Liam sat there for a moment, then went back to his spreadsheet. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of cold, gray drizzle that made everything look washed out. Liam met Ruiz in the lobby at 9:30. Ruiz was wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Liam's car, and he carried a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen 100 meetings just like this one. "You ready?" Ruiz asked. "No." "Good. Means you're paying attention." They drove to Summit Packaging's office in Ruiz's car, a sleek black sedan that still had that new car smell. Classical music played softly from the speakers. Ruiz didn't speak, and Liam didn't try to fill the silence. Summit Packaging Solutions occupied the third floor of a modern glass building in an industrial park 20 minutes outside the city. The lobby was all polished concrete and potted plants that looked too perfect to be real. A receptionist directed them to a conference room. Derek Hoffman was already there. He was older than Liam had expected, late 50s maybe, with silver hair combed back and a suit that fit like it had been tailored specifically for his frame. He stood when they entered, extending a hand. "Daniel, good to see you." Ruiz shook it. "Derek, this is Liam Carter. He'll be leading today's discussion." Hoffman's eyes flicked to Liam, and something shifted in his expression, a subtle recalculation. "Mr. Carter." We spoke on the phone. Liam shook his hand. Hoffman's grip was firm, bordering on aggressive. They sat down. Hoffman folded his hands on the table. "So," he said, "let's talk about these alleged discrepancies." Liam opened his folder and slid a copy of the spreadsheet across the table. "Over the past 6 months, your company has billed us for expedited shipping on 412 orders. According to our receiving logs, only 127 of those orders were actually shipped, expedited. The rest came standard ground." Hoffman picked up the spreadsheet, scanned it briefly, and set it down. "Your receiving logs could be incomplete." "They're not." "How can you be sure?" "Because I personally cross-checked every single entry against the shipping manifest your drivers signed when they delivered. The dates, times, and delivery methods are all documented." Hoffman's jaw tightened slightly. "There could be clerical errors." "Not this many." Ruiz leaned back in his chair, watching. Hoffman shifted tactics. "Even if there are discrepancies, Mr. Carter, you need to understand that our billing systems are highly complex. It's possible that some orders were flagged for expedited processing internally, even if they didn't ultimately ship that way. We'd still incur the costs. Then you should bill us for what you actually provided, not what you intended to provide." "It's not that simple." "It is, though," Liam said. "You charged us for a service we didn't receive. That's fraud." The word hung in the air like a grenade. Hoffman's expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation. It's a serious problem. Mr. Carter, I don't think you understand the position you're putting us in. Hartwell Industries has been a valued client for years. We've built a strong relationship. You're jeopardizing that over what amounts to a rounding error. $43,000 isn't a rounding error. In the context of a $200,000 contract, it's negligible." Liam leaned forward. "Then you won't mind refunding it." Hoffman's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's not about the money. It's about the principle. You're questioning our integrity based on incomplete data, and the data's not incomplete," Liam interrupted. "I have every invoice, every manifest, every log entry. I can pull up individual orders right now and show you exactly where your billing doesn't match reality. Do you want me to do that?" Hoffman stared at him. Ruiz cleared his throat. "Derek, let's cut through it. You overcharged us. We both know it. The question is how we move forward." Hoffman's gaze shifted to Ruiz. "What are you proposing?" "Refund the overcharges, adjust your billing practices so it doesn't happen again, and we'll continue the contract. And if we don't, then we find a new vendor." Hoffman sat back, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. "I'll need to discuss this with our finance team." "You have until Monday," Ruiz said. "After that, we start the RFP process." Hoffman stood up. "I'll be in touch." He left the room without shaking hands. Liam sat there, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Ruiz closed his briefcase. "Let's go." They didn't speak until they were back in the car. "You did well," Ruiz said as he pulled out of the parking lot. Liam looked at him. "He's not going to refund us." "Yes, he will." "How do you know?" "Because he knows we have him, and because finding a new client to replace a $200,000 contract isn't easy." Liam leaned his head against the window. "I thought I was going to throw up." "You didn't. That's what matters." They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Ruiz said, "You called it fraud. Was I wrong?" "No, but most people would have danced around it, used softer language. You didn't." "Should I have?" "No," Ruiz said. "You named it. That takes guts." When Liam got back to the office, there was an email waiting from Hoffman's finance director. The subject line read, "RE, Contract Review." He opened it. "Mr. Carter, After reviewing the documentation you provided, we have identified several billing errors on our end. We will be issuing a credit for $43,200 to be applied to your next invoice. Additionally, we have implemented new quality controls to prevent similar issues in the future. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Liam read it twice. Then he walked to Ruiz's office and showed him the email. Ruiz nodded. Good. Now write up a summary of what you found and how you resolved it. I want it on my desk by end of day. That's it? What were you expecting? A parade? Liam smiled despite himself. No. Then get to work. That night, Liam got home just after 8. Ava was at the kitchen table doing homework, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. Mrs. Cho was washing dishes. You're late? Mrs. Cho said. I know, sorry. She already ate. I made extra if you're hungry. Thank you. Mrs. Cho dried her hands and gathered her things. She's doing good, Liam. Really good. You should be proud. Liam looked at Ava, bent over her math worksheet, and felt something warm settle in his chest. I am. After Mrs. Cho left, Liam sat down next to Ava. What are you working on? Fractions. They're stupid. Fractions are useful. When? When you're splitting a pizza. She rolled her eyes but smiled. Liam helped her finish the worksheet, made her brush her teeth, and tucked her into bed. She was asleep before he even turned off the light. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her breathe. A year ago, he'd been terrified he wouldn't be able to keep her alive. Now he had health insurance, a steady paycheck, a job that didn't require him to work 3 shifts just to make rent. It still didn't feel real. By the end of his second month, Liam had stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. He'd proven he could handle the vendor negotiations. He'd started contributing in meetings without Ruiz having to prompt him. He'd even caught a cost overrun in the logistics budget that Henderson had missed, which earned him a grudging nod of respect. But the real test came on a Tuesday morning when Ruiz called him into his office and closed the door. We have a problem, Ruiz said. Liam sat down. What kind of problem? The kind that could cost us a major client. Ruiz slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a contract summary for Brennan Retail Group, one of Hartwell's largest accounts. They handled distribution for a chain of big box stores across the Midwest, and their contract was worth over $3 million a year. They're threatening to walk, Ruiz said. Why? Because we've missed 3 delivery deadlines in the past month. Their stores are running out of stock, customers are complaining, and they're losing money. They've given us 2 weeks to fix it, or they're switching to a competitor. Liam scanned the contract. What's causing the delays? That's what I need you to find out. Me? You've got access to all the logistics data. Pull the reports, talk to the warehouse managers, figure out where the breakdown is happening. I need answers by Friday. That's 3 days. I'm aware. Liam looked up. What if I can't figure it out? Then we lose the client, and probably 2 other accounts that'll follow them out the door. Ruiz's expression was unreadable. This is the deep end, Carter. Swim or drown. Liam took the folder and went back to his desk. He spent the rest of the day pulling shipping reports, cross-referencing them with warehouse logs, and building timelines for every delayed order. The data was a mess. Inconsistent labeling, missing entries, timestamps that didn't line up. By Wednesday afternoon, his eyes were burning and his head felt like it was stuffed with cotton. He called the warehouse manager for the Chicago facility, a guy named Ray, who sounded like he'd been yelled at one too many times. Look, I don't know what to tell you, Ray said. We're doing everything we can. The orders come in, we process them, we ship them. If they're late, it's not on us. Then where's the bottleneck? How should I know? I run a warehouse, not a detective agency. Liam bit back a sharp response. Can you walk me through what happens when an order comes in? Ray sighed. We get the order from the system. Pickers pull the items, packers box them, shipping labels get printed. Freight carrier picks them up. Done. How long does that usually take? 12 to 18 hours from order receipt to pickup. Liam checked the timelines. The delays weren't happening in the warehouse. The orders were sitting in the system for days before they even reached the warehouse. Ray, when was the last time you had an order come in and go out the same day? A pause. I don't know. Maybe 2 weeks ago? What changed? Nothing? Same process, same team. Something changed, Liam said. Orders don't just slow down for no reason. Then talk to IT. They're the ones who control the system. Liam hung up and called the IT help desk. After 20 minutes on hold, he got a technician named Priya who sounded like she was juggling 3 other calls. "What's the issue?" she asked. "I'm seeing delays in order processing. Orders are sitting in the queue for days before they're released to the warehouse." "That's a workflow issue, not an IT issue." "Can you check the system logs? See if there's a bottleneck somewhere?" "I'd need authorization from your department head." "I'm calling on behalf of Daniel Ruiz, VP of Operations." Priya sighed. "Hold on." She put him on hold again. Liam stared at his computer screen, watching the seconds tick by. Finally, Priya came back. "Okay, I'm looking at the logs. There's a validation step that got added to the workflow about 3 weeks ago. Every order has to pass through an approval queue before it gets released to the warehouse." "Why?" "Looks like it was part of a system update. Someone flagged high-value orders for manual review to prevent fraud." "Who authorized that?" "No idea, but it's creating a backlog. There are over 200 orders sitting in the queue right now waiting for approval." Liam felt his stomach drop. "Can you bypass it?" "Not without authorization." "I'll get it. Don't touch anything." He hung up and went straight to Ruiz's office. Ruiz was on a call. Liam waited outside, pacing, until Ruiz waved him in. "This better be good," Ruiz said. "It's the system. Someone added a manual approval step 3 weeks ago, and it's bottlenecking everything. There are over 200 orders stuck in the queue." Ruiz's expression darkened. "Who added it?" "It doesn't know, but we need to bypass it, or we're going to miss every deadline for the next month." Ruiz picked up his phone and dialed. "Get me Carol in IT, now." 15 minutes later, the approval queue was disabled. Orders started flowing to the warehouses. By Friday morning, every delayed order had been processed and shipped. Liam sent the summary report to Ruiz at 9 a.m. At 10 a.m., Ruiz called him into his office. "Brennan just confirmed they're staying," Ruiz said. Liam felt the tension drain out of his shoulders. "That's good. It's better than good. You just saved us $3 million. Liam didn't know what to say. "You found the problem," Ruiz continued. "You didn't wait for permission. You didn't pass it off to someone else. You fixed it." "I just did what needed to be done." Exactly. Ruiz leaned back in his chair. "You've got 2 weeks left on your probation. I'm ending it early." Liam's head snapped up. "What?" "You're staying. Permanently. I'm moving you to senior operations analyst. It comes with a raise and a real office instead of that cube you've been hiding in." Liam opened his mouth, then closed it. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just keep doing what you're doing." Liam stood up, shook Ruiz's hand, and walked out of the office in a daze. Jessica Mills was waiting by his desk. "Heard you got promoted," she said. "News travels fast." "It's a small building." She smiled, an actual genuine smile. "Congrats, Carter. You earned it." "Thanks." She started to walk away, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I was wrong about you." "Yeah? Yeah, you're scrappier than you look." That night, Liam took Ava out for dinner. They went to a diner she loved, one with red vinyl booths and a jukebox that still played actual records. She ordered pancakes even though it was 6 p.m., and Liam didn't stop her. "Dad?" she said through a mouthful of syrup. "Yeah." "Are we rich now?" Liam laughed. "No, kiddo, we're not rich." "But you got a new job." "I did." "Does that mean we can get a dog?" "Maybe someday." She grinned. "I'm going to hold you to that." Liam watched her eat, this fierce, stubborn, brilliant kid who deserved everything he couldn't give her yet. But he was getting closer, one step at a time. On Monday morning, Liam moved into his new office. It was small, barely bigger than a closet, but it had a door that closed and a window that looked out over the parking lot. There was a desk, a chair, and a shelf that was completely empty. He set down the box of things from his old cube and looked around. 6 weeks ago, he'd been pushing a mop. Now he was here. And somewhere above him, 14 floors up, Aurora Vale was in her office, probably unaware that the man she'd given a chance to was still standing, still fighting, still proving her right. The office stayed empty for exactly 3 days before Liam realized he had no idea what to put on the shelf. Most people would have brought in photos, maybe a plant, some kind of personal touch that said they belonged there. But Liam didn't have pictures on his phone that weren't of Ava, and bringing her into this space felt like mixing two worlds that shouldn't touch. So the shelf stayed bare, and the office stayed functional, and Liam kept his head down and worked. The raise hit his account 2 weeks later, and the number made him sit in his car for 10 minutes just staring at the bank app on his phone. He paid off the medical bills that had been sitting in collections for 8 months. He bought Ava new shoes because the ones she had were developing holes. He even went to a real grocery store instead of the discount place with the flickering lights and bought fresh vegetables that didn't come in a can. It felt reckless, like spending money he didn't actually have, but the account balance didn't lie. At work, things shifted in ways that were harder to measure. People started including him in email chains without being prompted. Henderson stopped explaining basic concepts like Liam was a child. Even Jessica Mills occasionally asked his opinion on things, though she still had a way of phrasing questions that felt like tests. But not everyone was convinced. There was a guy in finance named Marcus Webb, mid-40s, Harvard MBA, the kind of person who wore cufflinks and checked his watch during meetings like he had somewhere more important to be. He'd been with Hartwell for 12 years and had the kind of polished competence that came from never having to fight for anything. Liam first crossed paths with him during a budget review meeting in early November. The conference room was packed. Department heads, senior analysts, a few executives Liam recognized but had never spoken to. Ruiz was presenting a proposal to reallocate funds from underperforming divisions into logistics infrastructure, and the room was split on whether it was genius or financial suicide. Webb sat 3 seats down from Liam, taking notes on a tablet with the focused precision of a surgeon. When Ruiz finished his presentation, Webb raised his hand. "Daniel, I appreciate the thoroughness here, but I have concerns about the projected ROI. Your numbers assume a 15% efficiency gain in the first year. That's aggressive." "It's realistic," Ruiz said. "Based on what data?" "Based on the operational analysis Liam ran last month. We identified redundancies in our freight routing that are costing us about 8% in unnecessary fuel and labor costs. Fixing that alone gets us halfway there." Webb's gaze shifted to Liam. "You ran this analysis?" "Yes." "How long have you been in operations?" 3 months. A flicker of something passed across Webb's face, amusement maybe, or skepticism. 3 months, he repeated. "And you're confident in these projections?" Liam felt every eye in the room turn toward him. "I'm confident in the data," he said carefully. "The routing inefficiencies are documented. The cost savings are measurable. Whether we hit 15% depends on execution, but the potential is there." "Potential doesn't pay bills," Webb said. "What happens if you're wrong?" "Then we adjust." "That's not a plan. That's a gamble." Ruiz cut in. "Marcus, every strategic investment is a gamble. The question is whether the risk is worth the reward. I think it is." Webb leaned back in his chair. "I'll need to see the full analysis before I can sign off." "You'll have it by end of day," Ruiz said. The meeting moved on, but Liam could feel Webb's eyes on him for the rest of the hour. After the meeting, Ruiz pulled Liam aside in the hallway. "Don't worry about Webb," he said. "He's a pain in the ass, but he's good at his job." "He doesn't trust me." "He doesn't trust anyone. It's not personal." Felt personal. Ruiz smiled faintly. "Welcome to corporate politics. Get used to it." Liam sent the full analysis to Webb that afternoon, 43 pages of data, projections, and supporting documentation. He didn't hear back. 2 days later, Webb showed up at Liam's office. He didn't knock, just appeared in the doorway holding a printed copy of the report. "You got a minute?" Webb asked. "Sure." Webb sat down without being invited and set the report on Liam's desk. "I read this," he said. "And? It's solid. Better than I expected. Honestly." Liam didn't know how to respond to that. Webb leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Let me give you some advice, Carter. You're smart. You work hard. That's good. But this building is full of smart people who work hard, and most of them plateau because they don't understand the game." "What game?" "The one where perception matters as much as performance. You came out of nowhere, got handed a position most people spend years working toward, and now you're presenting budget proposals in front of executives. That makes people nervous." "I didn't ask for any of this." "Doesn't matter. You've got it. And now you have to prove you deserve it every single day, or people like me will find reasons to tear it apart." Liam met his gaze. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Webb stood up. You did good work on this. Keep doing good work, and maybe people will stop questioning how you got here. He left without waiting for a response. Liam sat there for a long time, staring at the report on his desk. He'd thought proving himself to Ruiz was the hard part. Turned out that was just the beginning. Thanksgiving came and went in a blur of too much food and a day off that Liam spent mostly sleeping. Ava made a turkey out of construction paper at school and taped it to the refrigerator, where it curled at the edges and collected grease splatters from the stove. Mrs. Cho invited them over for dinner, and they ate with her and 3 other families from the building, people Liam had seen in passing but never really talked to. It was loud and chaotic, and Ava laughed so hard she got the hiccups. And for a few hours, Liam forgot about budgets and projections and people like Marcus Webb who were waiting for him to fail. But the break ended, and December hit like a freight train. The holiday season meant increased order volumes, which meant longer hours, which meant Liam was back to getting home after Ava was asleep and leaving before she woke up. Mrs. Cho stepped in without being asked, making sure Ava got to school and ate something other than cereal for dinner, and Liam added another item to the mental list of debts he'd never be able to repay. On a Wednesday in mid-December, Ruiz called Liam into his office just after lunch. Close the door, Ruiz said. Liam did. We've got a situation, Ruiz said. Aurora's putting together a task force to evaluate a potential acquisition. She wants someone from operations on the team. Okay. She asked for you. Liam blinked. What? You'll be working directly with the executive team for the next 6 weeks. The acquisition target is a mid-sized logistics company in the Southeast. If we buy them, it'll expand our footprint and give us access to markets we've been trying to break into for years. But the due diligence is complicated, and Aurora wants operations to weigh in on whether their infrastructure can integrate with ours. Why me? Because she asked for you specifically. Liam's heart was pounding. I don't know anything about acquisitions. You'll learn. First meeting is Friday at 8 a.m., 15th floor. The executive floor? That's where Aurora's office is, yes. Liam felt like the ground was shifting under his feet. What if I screw this up? Then you screw it up, but I don't think you will. Ruiz pulled a folder from his desk and handed it over. This is everything we have on the target company so far. Read it, memorize it, and for the love of everything, don't walk into that room unprepared. Liam took the folder, his hands numb. Carter, Ruiz said. Liam looked up. This is the big leagues. Don't embarrass me. That night, Liam stayed up until 3 a.m. reading. The target company was called South Point Logistics. They operated 4 distribution centers across Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee, handled contracts with regional retailers, and had annual revenue just north of $40 million. On paper, they looked solid, but the folder also contained financial statements that showed declining profit margins, employee turnover rates that were higher than industry average, and a fleet of delivery trucks that were older than Liam's car. He took notes until his hand cramped, then switched to typing them into his laptop. He cross-referenced their operational costs against Hartwell's benchmarks, flagged inconsistencies, and built a list of questions that probably made him sound paranoid. By the time he finally collapsed into bed, the sky outside was starting to lighten. He woke up 4 hours later to Ava shaking his shoulder. Dad, you're going to be late. He shot upright, heart racing. What time is it? Almost 7? He scrambled out of bed, threw on clothes, kissed Ava on the forehead, and ran out the door without breakfast. He made it to the office at 7:53. The 15th floor felt different than he remembered, quieter. The carpet was thicker, the lighting softer, the whole atmosphere designed to communicate that this was where decisions got made. Patricia Eng was waiting outside Aurora's office. Mr. Carter, she said, you're cutting it close. I know, sorry. They're waiting for you in the boardroom, 3rd door on the left. Liam nodded and walked down the hall, his pulse hammering in his ears. The boardroom was massive. A table that could seat 30 people stretched down the center, flanked by leather chairs that looked like they cost more than his monthly rent. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city's skyline, and mounted on the far wall was a screen the size of a billboard. There were 6 people already seated. Aurora sat at the head of the table, wearing a navy suit and reading something on her tablet. Next to her was a man Liam didn't recognize, older, maybe 60, with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm demeanor that suggested he'd seen everything twice. Across from them sat Marcus Webb, A woman in a gray blazer who looked like she could kill you with a spreadsheet, and two others Liam vaguely recognized from company-wide emails. They all looked up when he entered. "Liam," Aurora said. "Glad you could join us." "Sorry, You're on time. Sit." Liam took the nearest empty chair, which happened to be directly across from Webb. Webb gave him a look that was impossible to read. Aurora set down her tablet. "Let's get started. For those who haven't met him, this is Liam Carter from Operations. He'll be evaluating the operational viability of the South Point acquisition." The older man with the glasses extended a hand across the table. "Richard Moss, General Counsel." Liam shook it. The woman in the gray blazer nodded. "Elena Vasquez, CFO." Liam nodded back. "All right," Aurora said. "Richard, walk us through the legal framework." For the next hour, Liam sat and listened as the team dissected South Point from every angle. Richard outlined potential regulatory hurdles. Elena broke down the financials in a way that made Liam's earlier analysis look like a crayon drawing. Webb raised concerns about cultural integration, and the other two executives debated market positioning and competitive advantages. Liam took notes and tried not to feel like he was drowning. Finally, Aurora turned to him. "Liam, operations perspective, can we integrate their infrastructure with ours?" Every eye in the room locked onto him. Liam cleared his throat. "On paper, yes. They've got 4 distribution centers that would fill gaps in our current network. But there are concerns." "Such as?" "Their fleet is outdated. Most of their trucks are 10-plus years old, which means higher maintenance costs and more breakdowns. Their employee turnover is almost 30% annually, which suggests either poor management or compensation issues. And their order fulfillment times are slower than ours by an average of 18 hours. Elena leaned forward. "How much would it cost to modernize the fleet?" "Depends on whether we lease or buy. But ballpark? Probably 8 to 10 million. "That's not in the acquisition budget," Webb said. "Then the acquisition budget is incomplete," Liam said. Webb's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "If we buy South Point as is, we're inheriting problems that'll cost us more in the long run than fixing them up front. Outdated trucks break down. High turnover means constant retraining. Slow fulfillment times mean unhappy clients. We either factor those costs into the deal or walk away." The room was silent. Aurora's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Elena," she said, "run the numbers with the fleet modernization included. Richard, check if there are any environmental regulations we need to consider with older vehicles. Marcus, I want a cultural assessment. Find out why their turnover is so high." She looked at Liam. "You'll work with their operations team directly. I want a full report on their processes, staffing, and infrastructure. 2 weeks." "Understood." The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, but Liam barely heard any of it. His brain was still stuck on the fact that he'd just contradicted Marcus Webb in front of the CEO and hadn't been thrown out of the room. When the meeting finally ended, people filed out in clusters, talking in low voices. Liam stood up, gathered his notes, and turned to find Aurora standing next to him. "Walk with me," she said. They went to her office. She closed the door and gestured for him to sit. "You handled yourself well in there," she said. "I wasn't sure if I should have. You were right to push back. Webb's good, but he thinks in terms of balance sheets. You think in terms of reality. That's valuable." Liam didn't know what to say. Aurora sat down behind her desk. "How's your daughter?" The question caught him off guard. "She's good. Great, actually. The new insurance it's made a huge difference." "Good." A pause. "Can I ask you something?" Liam said. "Go ahead." "Why me?" "For this task force. There are people who've been here longer, who know more, who think like everyone else," Aurora finished. "I don't need another Marcus Webb. I need someone who sees problems no one else is looking for." "And you think that's me?" "I know it is." She leaned back in her chair. "When I gave you this job, people questioned it. They still do. But every time someone doubts you, you prove them wrong. Keep doing that." Liam nodded slowly. "One more thing," Aurora said. "This acquisition is important. If it goes through, it'll position Hartwell for expansion into markets we've been locked out of for years. But if we do it wrong, it'll cost us more than money. It'll cost us credibility." "No pressure," Liam said. Aurora smiled faintly. "Exactly." The next 2 weeks were brutal. Liam flew to Atlanta to visit South Point's main distribution center, where he spent 3 days walking the floor, interviewing warehouse managers, and inspecting equipment that should have been retired a decade ago. He sat through meetings with their operations director, a woman named Karen who chain-smoked and spoke in clipped sentences like she was rationing words, and came away with the distinct impression that South Point was held together with duct tape and stubbornness. The employees were exhausted, the managers were defensive, and the whole operation had the feel of a ship that was taking on water but refusing to acknowledge it. Liam documented everything. When he got back to Hartwell, he locked himself in his office and spent 4 straight days writing the report. He didn't sugarcoat it. South Point had potential, but realizing that potential would require a complete overhaul, new trucks, new management training, new workflows, and probably a new operations director because Karen was 3 years past burnout and running on spite. He sent the report to Aurora on a Friday at 11 p.m. She replied 6 minutes later, "Good work. Present this to the task force Monday morning." Liam stared at the email. He was going to have to stand in front of the same people who'd watched him stumble through his first meeting and tell them that this acquisition was going to cost millions more than anyone had budgeted for. He didn't sleep much that weekend. Monday morning, he walked into the boardroom with a printed copy of his report and a stomach full of battery acid. The task force was already assembled. Aurora at the head of the table, Elena with her spreadsheets, Webb with his tablet, Richard Moss looking serene and unflappable. "Liam," Aurora said, "you're up." He stood, connected his laptop to the projector, and pulled up the first slide. "I spent 3 days at South Point's Atlanta facility," he began. "Here's what I found." He walked them through it, every outdated truck, every burned-out manager, every bottleneck in their fulfillment process. He showed them photos of equipment held together with zip ties, staffing charts that revealed entire shifts running on skeleton crews, turnover data that painted a picture of a workplace people couldn't wait to leave. "The bottom line," Liam said, "is that South Point isn't worth what we're paying unless we're willing to invest another 12 to 15 million in the first year alone. That includes fleet modernization, infrastructure upgrades, and management restructuring." Elena's expression was unreadable. "That's almost double the contingency budget." "I know." "So your recommendation is what? Walk away?" Liam hesitated. "No. My recommendation is that we renegotiate. Right now we're buying South Point at market value for a company that's functional. But they're not functional. They're barely holding on. We use that as leverage to bring the purchase price down, then reinvest the savings into fixing what's broken." Webb leaned back in his chair. "And if they won't renegotiate? Then we walk, because buying them as is just buying ourselves a problem." The room was quiet. Aurora looked at Elena. "Can we make the numbers work with a lower purchase price?" "Depends how much lower." "Run the scenarios. Richard, draft a revised offer. We present it to South Point's board by end of week." She looked at Liam. "Anything else?" "Just one thing," Liam said. "If we do this deal, we need to replace their operations director. She's burned out, the staff doesn't trust her, and she's not going to implement the changes we need." "You have someone in mind?" Liam thought about the managers he'd met, the workers who'd pulled him aside to vent, the whole broken system that needed someone who actually gave a damn. "Not yet, but I can find someone." Aurora nodded. "Then find them." 3 weeks later, Hartwell acquired South Point Logistics for $32 million, $8 million less than the original offer. The savings went directly into fleet upgrades and infrastructure improvements. Liam was put in charge of overseeing the operational integration. It meant more travel, more late nights, more time away from Ava. But it also meant he was building something. And for the first time in his life, Liam Carter wasn't just surviving. He was succeeding. The integration took 6 months, and it nearly broke Liam 3 times. The first time was in February, when he flew to Atlanta for the 4th time in as many weeks and came back to find Ava sitting at the kitchen table with a letter from her school. Mrs. Cho was there too, her face tight with something Liam couldn't quite read. "What happened?" Liam asked, dropping his bag by the door. Ava didn't look up. "Nothing." "Ava," Mrs. Cho cleared her throat. "There's a scholarship opportunity. Full ride to Patterson Academy. It's a private school, science and medicine track. They only take 20 students a year." Liam's chest tightened. "That's incredible." She doesn't want to apply, Mrs. Cho said. Liam looked at Ava. She was staring at the letter like it was written in a language she didn't understand. Why not? He asked. Because you're never here, Ava said quietly. The words hit him like a fist. Kiddo, I know I've been traveling a lot, but you're always traveling. You leave before I wake up and come back after I'm asleep. Mrs. Cho sees you more than I do. Liam sat down across from her. I'm doing this for you, so you can have opportunities like this. I don't want opportunities. I want my dad. The room went silent. Mrs. Cho stood up quietly and slipped out the door, leaving them alone. Liam reached across the table and took Ava's hand. It was small and warm and trembling slightly. I'm sorry, he said. I know I've been gone too much. But this job, it's the reason we can afford your medicine. It's the reason you can even think about a school like Patterson. I'm trying to build something for us. But what if I don't care about that? Ava's voice cracked. What if I just want things to be like they used to be? Liam felt something twist inside his chest. When we were barely scraping by, when you had to use your inhaler 3 times a day because we couldn't afford the better medication, at least you were there. He didn't have an answer for that. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Liam squeezed her hand. I'll do better, he said. I promise. And you're going to apply for that scholarship. Dad, because you're brilliant, Ava, and you deserve a shot at something bigger than this apartment and a dad who's too tired to help with your homework. She looked at him with those 2 old eyes. What if I don't get in? Then we'll figure something else out, but you have to try. She nodded slowly. That night, after Ava went to bed, Liam sat on the couch and stared at his phone. He pulled up his work calendar, flights to Atlanta, meetings with South Point's management team, site visits to the distribution centers, conference calls that bled into evenings and weekends. He was building something, but he was losing something too, and he didn't know how to do both. The second time he almost broke was in March, when the South Point integration hit a wall. The new trucks had been delivered, the infrastructure upgrades were underway, but the workforce was in open rebellion. Liam had brought in a new operations director, a guy named Steve Ortiz who'd turned around a failing warehouse in Ohio, but the existing staff saw him as an outsider sent to clean house. Rumors spread that Hartwell was planning mass layoffs. Productivity dropped, tension spiked. Liam flew down to handle it personally. He called an all-hands meeting in the main warehouse on a Tuesday morning. 200 employees packed into a space designed for half that many, standing shoulder to shoulder, arms crossed, expressions ranging from suspicious to outright hostile. Liam stood on a loading dock with a bullhorn that crackled every time he spoke. I know there's been a lot of talk, he began, about layoffs, about Hartwell coming in and gutting this place. I'm here to tell you that's not happening. Someone in the back shouted, Then why'd you fire Karen? We didn't fire her. She retired, and frankly, she was burned out, and you all knew it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Here's the truth, Liam continued. When Hartwell bought South Point, we didn't do it to shut you down. We did it because you fill gaps in our network that we can't fill any other way. But we also didn't buy you because things were running smoothly. Your equipment was falling apart. Your processes were outdated. Your turnover rate was 30% because people didn't want to work here anymore. The murmurs got louder. So yeah, we're making changes, new trucks, new systems, new management. But we're also investing $15 million into this facility over the next year. That's not what you do to a place you're planning to close. That's what you do to a place you're planning to grow. A woman near the front raised her hand. What about our jobs? Your jobs are safe, but they're going to look different. We're implementing new training programs, better safety protocols, and we're raising the starting wage by $3 an hour across the board. That got their attention. We're not here to destroy what you built, Liam said. We're here to make it better. But that only works if you're willing to meet us halfway. The crowd was quiet now, watching him. I grew up working jobs like this, Liam said. Warehouse shifts, overnight stocking. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to show up every day and wonder if anyone even notices. But I also know what it's like when someone takes a chance on you, when someone sees you working your ass off and decides you're worth investing in. He paused. That's what we're doing here. We're investing in you. Don't make us regret it. The meeting ended without applause, but it ended without a walkout too. Over the next few weeks, the tension started to ease. The new processes took root. Productivity climbed. Steve Ortiz pulled Liam aside one afternoon and said, "I don't know what you said to them, but it worked." "I told them the truth," Liam said. "Most executives wouldn't have bothered." "I'm not most executives." Steve smiled. "No, you're not." The third time Liam almost broke was in April, when Ava got the letter from Patterson Academy. She'd been accepted. Full scholarship, room, board, tuition, everything. She'd start in the fall. Liam read the letter 3 times, then sat down at the kitchen table and cried. Ava found him there 20 minutes later. "Dad?" He wiped his eyes quickly. "I'm fine. I'm so proud of you." She sat down next to him. "Are you sure you want me to go? It's 4 years. I'd only come home for holidays." "Of course I want you to go. This is everything we've been working for." "But you'll be alone." Liam looked at her, this fierce, brilliant kid who'd fought for every breath and never complained, who'd watched him work himself to exhaustion and never asked for more than he could give. "I'll be fine," he said. "You're going to be amazing." She hugged him, and he held on maybe a little too long. By summer, the South Point integration was complete. The new trucks were on the road. The warehouses were running at peak efficiency. Employee turnover had dropped to 12%. Revenue was up 23% year over year. Aurora called Liam into her office on a Thursday afternoon in late June. "Sit," she said. He sat. She slid a folder across the desk. "Open it." Inside was a contract. Liam scanned the first page, then the second, his brain struggling to process what he was seeing. "You're offering me VP of Operations," he said. "Ruiz is retiring. He recommended you." Liam looked up. "He what?" "He said," and I quote, "Carter's the only person stubborn enough to do this job right." Liam laughed despite himself. "That sounds like him." Aurora leaned back in her chair. "You've earned this. The South Point acquisition was a masterclass in operational turnaround. You took a failing company and made it profitable in 6 months. That's not luck. That's skill." "I had a lot of help." "You led the effort. Own it." Liam stared at the contract. The salary was more money than he'd ever imagined making. The title was one he'd never thought he'd see next to his name. "What do you say?" Aurora asked. "I say yes," she smiled. "Good. You start Monday." That night, Liam took Ava out to celebrate. They went to the same diner with the red vinyl booths and the jukebox, and she ordered pancakes again, even though it was 7 p.m., and he didn't stop her. "VP of Operations," she said through a mouthful of syrup. "That's a big deal, right?" "It's a pretty big deal, yeah." "Does that mean you'll stop traveling so much?" "Probably not, but it means I'll have more control over when I travel." She nodded, processing. "Are we rich now?" Liam laughed. "We're comfortable." "Can we get a dog?" "You're going to boarding school in 2 months." "So that's a no." "That's a maybe someday." She grinned. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ava said, "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I'm scared about Patterson." "That's normal." "What if I don't fit in? What if everyone there is smarter than me?" Liam set down his fork. "Listen to me. You're one of the smartest people I know, and I don't just mean for your age, I mean period. You fought for things most kids never have to think about, and you've never let it stop you. Those kids at Patterson, they might have money and fancy degrees on their walls, but they don't have what you have." "What's that?" "Grit. You know how to work for things. You know how to keep going when it's hard. That's worth more than any test score." She looked at him, eyes shining. "You really think so?" "I know so." In August, Liam drove Ava to Patterson Academy. The campus was 2 hours north, sprawling lawns, brick buildings that looked like they'd been standing since the Revolutionary War, students walking around with backpacks, and confidence that came from never having to worry about where their next meal was coming from. Ava's dorm room was on the 3rd floor of a building called Whitmore Hall. It was small but clean, with a window that overlooked a courtyard and a desk that was bigger than the one Liam had in his office. Her roommate was a girl from California named Maya, who talked a mile a minute and had already covered half the room in posters. Liam helped Ava unpack, hung a corkboard on the wall, and made her bed with the new sheets they'd bought the week before. When everything was put away, they stood in the doorway together. "You're going to do great," Liam said. "I know." But her voice wavered. Call me if you need anything, anytime. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning. I will. He hugged her, and she buried her face in his shoulder. I love you, kiddo, he said. I love you too. When he finally let go and walked back to his car, he didn't let himself look back. If he did, he'd turn around and drag her home with him. The drive back was quiet. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had, but Ava was exactly where she needed to be. And that was enough. 4 years went by faster than Liam thought possible. He threw himself into work, restructuring supply chains, negotiating contracts, opening 2 new distribution centers in the Midwest. He traveled less than he had during the South Point integration, but he still spent more nights in hotels than he wanted to admit. He visited Ava when he could, watched her thrive, watched her win awards for her science projects, ace her exams, get accepted into a pre-med summer program at a university he couldn't pronounce. She called him every Sunday, without fail. Sometimes they talked for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. She told him about her classes, her friends, the research project she was working on about respiratory therapies. She was becoming someone extraordinary, and Liam was so proud it hurt. In his personal life, things were quieter. He moved out of the 4th floor walk-up and into a condo that had heating that actually worked and windows that didn't rattle when the wind blew. He bought furniture that wasn't secondhand. He even went on a few dates, though none of them went anywhere. Work was enough. Ava was enough. He didn't need more than that. But then, one morning in late October, 7 years after he'd walked into Aurora Vale's office with a mop in his hand, Liam got a call from Ruiz. Ruiz had retired 3 years earlier, but they still talked occasionally, usually about work, sometimes about life. This time Ruiz said, I'm putting together a foundation for people like you. Like me? People who've got the talent, but not the opportunity. People stuck in jobs that don't see them. I want to create pathways, scholarships, mentorship programs, job training. I want to find the next Liam Carter before someone else does. Liam was quiet for a moment. That's a hell of an idea. I want you on the board. I'm not a charity guy, Ruiz. You don't have to be. You just have to care, and you do. Liam thought about the maintenance worker he used to be. The guy who'd worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on. The guy who'd walked into the wrong office and found a door that shouldn't have been open. Yeah, Liam said. I'm in. The foundation launched 6 months later. They called it Second Door Initiative. It started small, 10 scholarships, a handful of mentorship pairings, partnerships with community colleges and trade schools. But it grew. Within 2 years, they'd helped over 200 people find pathways out of survival mode and into careers that paid enough to build a life on. Liam met some of them, listened to their stories, saw his own reflection in their faces. And every time he shook someone's hand and told them they'd earned their shot, he thought about Aurora, about the woman who'd looked at a janitor and seen something worth investing in. He never forgot that. On a warm Saturday in May, Liam sat in the crowd at Patterson Academy's graduation ceremony. Ava was somewhere in the sea of blue caps and gowns, waiting for her name to be called. He scanned the rows, trying to spot her, and finally caught a glimpse of her near the middle, laughing at something the person next to her had said. She looked so grown up it startled him. When they called her name, he stood up and cheered louder than anyone else in the crowd. She walked across the stage, shook the headmaster's hand, and accepted her diploma with a grin that could have lit up the whole campus. After the ceremony, they found each other in the chaos of families and photographers. I'm so proud of you, Liam said, hugging her. Thanks, Dad. What's next? Medical school. Johns Hopkins accepted me. He blinked. Johns Hopkins. Full ride. They've got a program for students interested in pediatric pulmonology. I want to work with kids like me. Kids who can't breathe right. Liam felt his throat tighten. That's perfect. I learned it from you, you know. Learned what? That you don't wait for someone to give you permission to do something important. You just do it. He didn't trust himself to speak. They took photos, ate dinner with a few of her friends and their families, laughed until Liam's face hurt. And when he drove her back to the apartment that night, she was staying for the summer before school started, he realized something. He'd done it. He'd given her the life he'd always wanted her to have. And it had cost him everything he had. But it was worth it. 10 years after that morning in Aurora's office, Liam Carter sat in a board meeting on the 15th floor. He was 42 now. His hair was starting to gray at the temples. He had a corner office with his name on the door and a view that stretched all the way to the river. Aurora was still CEO, still sharp as ever, still the kind of person who could silence a room with a look. The meeting was winding down when she said, "One more thing before we adjourn. I'm stepping down." The room went silent. "What?" someone said. "I've been doing this for 14 years. It's time for someone else to take the reins." "Who?" Marcus Webb asked. Aurora looked directly at Liam. "I'm recommending Liam Carter as my successor." Liam's brain short-circuited. "You're what?" "You've been running operations for 7 years. You understand this company better than anyone in this room, and you care about the people who work here. That matters." "Aurora, think about it. We'll vote next quarter." The meeting adjourned. Liam sat there, stunned. Aurora walked over and sat down next to him. "You look terrified," she said. "Because I am." "Good. You should be. It's a hard job." "Why me?" "Because 10 years ago, I took a chance on you. And you didn't just prove me right, you exceeded every expectation I had. Now it's your turn to take chances on people." Liam looked at her. "I don't know if I'm ready." "No one ever is, but you'll figure it out. You always do." 3 months later, Liam Carter became CEO of Hartwell Industries. He spent his first day in Aurora's old office, his office now, staring out the window at the city below. He thought about the janitor who used to clean these floors, the guy who'd worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent, the guy who'd opened the wrong door and found a woman who saw something in him he didn't see in himself. That guy was gone now. But he wasn't forgotten, because 5 years later, Liam started a program within Hartwell called the Open Door Initiative. It was simple. Every quarter, they identified 3 employees from non-management roles